we are thankful for our next guest. He is Representative Tim Bruchett. He joins us from time to time to talk about goings-on in Washington, D.C. I believe he's home now for the Christmas holiday, and we appreciate him spending a little bit of time with us to talk about everything that was 2023 and what we expect in 2024. Congressman, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on, brother. I really appreciate it.
Man, it is absolutely my pleasure. I love having you on more than anything because it gives me an opportunity to do this, Tim. You'll get a kick out of this. So every time I have you on, and I do this for most of my, regular guests, whether it's you or Congressman Rose or Congressman Green or Ogles, whoever it might be, I just pop your name into the Google machine and then hit news and see what comes up. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
Intermingled with you have become the name and one of the faces on Capitol Hill regarding the investigation into UFOs. That's one. I'll get into that in a moment. But I'm just going to read some of the headlines that I got. MSNBC, the GOP's impeachment fumble, fact-checking Representative Tim Bruchett. Fox News, America under Biden is a rudderless ship, Representative Tim Bruchett. Knoxville News Sentinel, I'm going to get into this one in a second. GOP's hold on House in danger, and Burchett is a big part of why. And then Mediaite, Simone Sanders grills GOP House rep over lack of evidence to impeach. You just can't come in here and lie. So I'm here to tell you, Merry Christmas, Tim. If you are getting under the skin of liberals, you must be doing something right, and you're doing something right.
Yeah, and I know she said liberals, not just Democrats. We've got quite a few rats in our barn, and they're coming after me. They're raising the money to try to beat me in the primary. They've got people flying up to D.C. and meeting with the big boys and trying to raise the money to do it. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting election year, and the attacks have just started. I'd say they're not even in first year yet.
I'm unaware of the end. I mean, is there somebody that has announced that they're primarying you yet?
Oh, no. Yeah, they're snooping around. They'll call somebody and they'll call me back, and it's very predictable. It's just very predictable. A lot of folks don't care really about this country. They just care about themselves. And if the country advances and they get to advance their portfolio, then they're great. But if it affects them $1, they just tear the whole thing down. This is a disaster. We need to start over kind of thing mentality. We need to get rid of Burchett and, because he's a stick in the mud kind of thing. And it's very predictable. It goes without saying. And how much money they raise and who they get to run against me, that's the question.
A long time mentor of mine, a gentleman who's passed away now, but who initially gave me a job in talk radio some 25 years ago, a man by the name of Don Markwell. Early on in my radio career, I was using, and you just reflected on this, I was using the words conservative and Republican relatively interchangeably. And he told me over 20 years ago, you need to learn to distinguish between those two because Republicans, that word changes depending on what part of the country you're in, and it certainly changes depending on whose votes you're trying to attract. Kevin McCarthy in Tennessee would not be a Republican at all, right? He wouldn't be considered a Republican, certainly not a conservative. So I find it amusing when I read this in the Knoxville News Sentinel. I want to read you this paragraph and get you to reflect on it because this is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Burchett can rightfully take some credit or blame for such a slim margin, talking about the GOP margin in the House. McCarthy would never have resigned had he not been removed as Speaker, and Burchett was among 8 Republicans, the Crazy Eights, as McCarthy calls them, who joined with Democrats to remove the Speaker. Many longtime Republicans are questioning Burchett's loyalty to the Republican Party when his votes are increasingly harmful to the GOP. The Democrats could easily become the new majority just through resignations or even deaths of Republican members. I'm fascinated to listen to certainly left-of-center authors, if not liberal authors, tell me what is and is not a good conservative and what is and is not a good Republican. I'm sure it amuses you, too.
Yeah, I mean, he's mad at me because I would not vote to send 114 billion unchecked dollars to Ukraine. He's also mad because of my vote on Syria, getting our troops out of there. And people ask, we were in Syria? We're all over this dadgum world. American boys and girls take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And I dare say Syria is in the realm of that Constitution. But regardless, they can't control me. The voters control me. The big boys don't control me. They never have, and it just drives them crazy. And this is just more of that. It's all part of an orchestrated deal, and they'll continue. And for instance, the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, I voted against the majority of Republicans on that because in that it had 6 changes for at taxpayer expense for military personnel. It has in there, it doesn't outlaw the drag shows on our military bases. Just go down the list of it allows them it pays for them folks to travel to other areas of the country so they can get abortions. These things should not be in a military budget, and they continue to be in. And Republicans continue. And the most troubling of the whole thing was the FISA part, where they put FISA court in there, where it allows them to spy on Americans. And over 278,000 times they've used this to spy on Americans, and it's illegal as hell. But what they do is that is how they did it on Trump. They get some foreigner, it's some trumped up deal, no pun intended, and then they use it to backdoor to go in to spy on President Trump. And that's what they did. And if they did it to Trump, sure as heck they can do it to me or you. And they did it that we know of over 278,000 times. So those are kind of things that, Republicans maybe voted for, but they aren't the Republican Party that I signed on with. And,
each time we talk about FISA, I try to remind people, and this has always galvanized it in my mind better than anything. You mentioned Trump, and you're right. If they are willing to use something like FISA to spy on a presidential candidate at the time and knew exactly what they were doing and then lied about it. And I remind people that we only know about that because Trump won. If Trump had lost, now he made the claim before all was revealed, and a lot of leftist media just poo-pooed it. Now, this guy's crazy. He's ridiculous. He's talking about wiretapping. What a joke. Well, it turns out Trump was absolutely right, as ridiculous as it sounded when he made the initial claim. And we wouldn't know anything about it had he not won. So the reason I bring that up, Tim, they could be spying on you. They could be spying on me. We just don't know about it because someone has not uncovered it and blown the whistle.
Yeah, it'd be rude if they weren't spying on us, actually, I think. No. But I just think we better wake up. And these Republicans that do this stuff, they cut these deals. And they cut deals. I mean, good gosh. We always gripe about Pelosi making 80% or whatever return on her investments. A lot of Republicans are doing that, and they did it through a missile defense contract. For instance, when we went to when we went to Ukraine and we sent our missile defense system over there, that we had to replenish ours, and lo and behold, these folks had bought this stock maybe a month ahead of time, and one person did it. I'd say a coincidence, but multiples did it in both parties. So I just think we better really be careful with these folks. And these are the folks that'll be running against me and a lot of other good Republicans. And, and you got to realize, too, McCarthy's got $17 million in an account. What the heck is he doing with $17 million that possibly this Bankman-Fried character who took, who basically embezzled billions with a B dollars and is going to federal penitentiary. He gave a bunch of Democrats, but he also gave some Republicans money. And what we think has happened is they used it to run against conservative Republicans and put moderates in there. And when we were supposed to have a 40-person lead in the House, and we ended up with 3. Now, why is that? It's because we picked some poor people to run. And that's the bottom line. And who is at the head of that? Former Speaker of the House. There's a lot of other things. I'm not going to air his dirty laundry on the news, but there's plenty out there. And, and these are the people that are coming after me and folks like me. It's a never ending battle. They get, like I say, they're very self-serving, and it's very obvious. And
let me ask you this: in the aftermath of the removal of Kevin McCarthy, and my position on that was always very plain. Had Kevin McCarthy kept his word when he negotiated his speakership, he'd still be speaker. He didn't,
100%.
and you know what? He created the rules that led to his ouster. That said, are you still taking a wait-and-see approach with Mike Johnson? I was concerned that Mike Johnson pushed the NDAA the way that he did. I hated the legislation. I think it's awful. I think it's bad. It's bad public policy to spend money that is fake on our military. And that's where I start. And then we can get into all of the particulars, all of the little nest eggs that are there for the woke progressive left in the legislation that spends almost $1 trillion. I had Scott Desjardins on. I know Congressman Desjardins voted in favor of it. He knew that he was coming into a hornet's nest, and he got one when he got here because I was very disappointed with his vote. Are you concerned with the speaker at all, or are you continuing to take a wait-and-see approach considering what he was handed just less than a month ago, really about a month ago?
I'm always concerned with the speaker, but they have, he got thrown into the deep end on this thing. He was literally the person who organized our speeches on the floor at night and had a competition. You'd win a baseball bat or a Thomas Jefferson statue or something if you won. And then the next day, almost literally, he's flying to Israel to talk to Netanyahu on behalf of our country. So, I am concerned, but he has not lied to us. He has not lied to us yet about anything that he says he's going to do. And so he hasn't lied to me anyway. I can't speak for everybody else, but yeah, I'm concerned. Of course I'm concerned. I want him to fight it out. I want it in our conference meeting, the chairman of the committee was pushing this horrible NDAA. That, is this do we want to shut the government down over this? And the answer was obviously yes. I mean, if we're taxpayer funded sex changes, at some point you just got to say enough is enough and make your case to the American public. Forget the MSNBCs and all these other clowns out here and just do what's right. At some point, Congress needs to just do what's right and take our case to the American public and not hide from it. But, as of yet, there's only a few of us that are willing to do that. And, and I fully expect some high-powered opposition because of it.
Desjardins in part defended the yes vote based on the fact that FISA would come back up for another authorization in April, which seemed a little bit excuse-making. I'm not asking you to reflect on that necessarily, except to tell me how that works. And do you expect the Republicans will take a firmer stand against FISA, which has obviously been used to spy on the American people? We were sold a bill of goods when it initially passed. We were told that it would not be used to spy on the American people, and it is used in that fashion plenty for that purpose. It's not a matter of them just getting caught up. As you said at the beginning of our conversation, Tim, they're using the FISA courts to spy on Americans, and they're using foreign emissaries and foreign entanglements as an excuse to do so. Do you expect Republicans will take a stand in April?
They better, because there's a lot of angry Americans in both parties. I was more disappointed. I was surprised more of the hard left didn't do it, because I got a warning for them. If we ever get back in control and we start doing that, it's all over. I mean, because this will be ruthless. And we'll do it. They do it. Everybody does it. We've got to get control of this thing now. Or we have really, you talk about weaponizing somebody. This is like going from baseball bat to an atomic bomb. Because anybody that has any contact with any foreigner, just imagine. I mean, say somebody works for you or whatever. Hey, we need to investigate them. Don't need a court order. They just go investigate the foreigner because they work for you to get to you. And this is exactly what they did. And it's dangerous. It is a cocked gun in the hands of a untrained criminal. And Deidre Lay's my buddy. He's my friend.
I mean, I like Scott too, and I told him how much I appreciated him coming on, knowing that we were going to have some strong disagreements. And I do respect that. I don't respect the vote, but I certainly respect the man.
Yeah, I do too. He's been a conservative, and I give these guys the benefit of the doubt. I'm just telling you my position on it. Everybody has a reason. You get something, an issue that really is of concern to you. And that's part of the problem, too, with the whole system. We've got to get back to single-issue bills.
Oh,
yeah,
amen on that. I'm going to give it to the guest to choose which direction we go right now. UFOs, immigration, or impeachment. It's up to you, Tim.
I don't care.
Oh, boy. I feel like they're interrelated, and they all have to do with alien creatures.
Well, I know my buddy John Rose is big on the alien issue, so you can let him answer that.
Let's impeachment inquiry. The political left are calling you a big old fat liar because you don't have concerns about the president's entanglements with his son as vice president of the United States of America. What's your response?
$30 million flows through. I mean, let's be honest. The only thing Hunter Biden is qualified for is crack cocaine and hookers, and that's the truth. He used this money for a crazy lifestyle. I think he endangered the safety of this country through his father, through that entanglement. His father continuously lied. He said, my son we don't talk about his business, which in fact we had testimony. It said, in fact, he handed the phone to members of a board meeting. He said, he's not with the Chinese, and I'm not making any money off of it. In fact, $5 million just uncovered. It took a circuitous route. It went through Hunter, through one of his 20 shell corporations, through one of his 22 bank accounts, I guess it was, to Hunter's uncle, the President of the United States' brother, James. Then it went back to Hunter, and then the big guy, Joe Biden himself, got $40,000 out of the deal. And, and they're going to claim that some of this money is for paying off a truck loan. I don't know about all the truck loan because I didn't know you used a shell corporation to pay off your debts. So, and there's no proof that they paid one lick of taxes, and they let the statute run on that, most of it. So they're not going to go after him, if you can believe that, for some of it. But, the whole thing smells. The national media just says there's no proof, and they just keep saying no proof. But when you give them this, they keep saying, well, there's no proof there. Well, $30 million. Why would they give Hunter Biden $30 million? It's easy to get to Joe Biden, and the money's there, the route's there, and the Justice Department will never be there. We'll probably get the votes to impeach him, maybe, I don't know, either way, but the Justice Department will never do anything about it, and that's the bottom line. The Senate sure as hell won't. So.
Yeah, speaking of the Department of Justice not doing anything about Joe, what about Hunter? I mean, he flaunts the subpoena last week.
Yeah.
I questioned why Comer, and I'm not asking you to go after Comer or to go after Jim Jordan. I think those are two good guys. But why weren't you ready for this possibility? I mean, because you get him over to the House side, then you can escort him into the closed door hearing if you wanted to. I mean, my thought was, okay, let's go to public testimony. When you get him into public testimony, have the sergeant at arms escort him to the closed room.
Well, they did it on the Senate side, and Swalwell was the one who reserved the area. Apparently, we were in there. I was in there waiting on him. I said earlier in the morning, somebody asked me, "Do you think he'll show up?" And I said, "No, I don't." And they were all shocked on one of the national news shows, but I didn't think he would show up, and in fact, he did not. And then the last thing he said was, this shows you how in the tank the national media is. The last thing he said was, and I'm going to answer all your questions. And then he turned around and got in his taxpayer-paid-for Suburban detail with his Secret Service, which they not allowed Mr. Kennedy to have, who, you know, obviously a family that's been affected by assassinations. The guy's father was assassinated, for goodness sakes. And Joe Biden won't even let him have a security detail. So, you know, this whole thing just stinks. The national media, they've got so much invested in Joe Biden. They can't stand the fact that he's a failure, and they hate Donald Trump. And the reality is they hate America. They hate everything we stand for. They hate the freedoms we have. They hate our system of government. They hate capitalism. Everything they do proves that. And this is just one more incident of them thumbing their nose at us, the American people, and they get by with it because the Justice Department is so corrupt. President Obama might as well still be in the White House because all his people are there doing his deeds, and Joe Biden is just walking around looking for the soft-serve ice cream machine.
So the South Carolina primary is, a month and a half away, something along those lines. Do you expect, just a prediction from you, do you expect that Joe Biden is their candidate come South Carolina?
I don't think Joe Biden stays. I don't think he's the candidate when it comes down to it. I think
so. Maybe he's in, but they try to pull something at the convention.
Yeah, well, I mean, they make their own rules. I mean, Hillary Clinton having her people, at debates to ask questions. They're not playing by any rules. They don't have to play by the rules because less than 20% of the American population votes. 20 million evangelical Christians decided to stay home on Election Day and be arrogant in their pulpits and act like they're doing God's will by sitting on their butt on Election Day. We get what we deserve, and we're getting it right now, and it's going to get worse if the public does not wake up. If we don't do better than 20% of the people, less than 20% of the people go to the polls on Election Day, it's going to be a very dark days in this country.